Hey everyone, welcome back to Royal Roots Homestead, where we are on a journey learning how to build a homestead from scratch. Purchased this house with just under an acre almost a year ago, and I built the garden in the back, which is my vegetable or edible garden, along with the front garden beds that I have planted flowers and rose bushes. And I am just sharing my journey. I'm learning as I go. I'm sharing the information, and today we got some lessons that I learned, some hard lessons that I learned. I actually filmed or shot or video or recorded, whatever you want to call it, another video that I don't believe I'm going to release or upload, and mainly because I'm still dealing with some issues with my editing software, and it was very, very long. I think in previous videos I did go over a little bit of the things that I've learned while building the garden here on this property, but today I just want to go over only lessons that have been learned. And there's just a couple of them that are like the main lessons that I learned that is going to take up a majority of this video as well. So first, like, share, subscribe. We are trying to grow this channel so I can provide more content for those who are looking to do the same thing and just need the encouragement or to see someone doing it from scratch and how, I'm not going to say, we're not going to use the term uneasy or difficult. We're going to say how involved it is so that you are not shocked when you get started on this journey. So first off, lessons. When you first purchase a property, if you have the intent to start a homestead, a farm, or anything of the sort, it's exciting. You are thinking, finally, I have this piece of property that I can do the things that I want to do. I thought the same thing. I still feel the same way. However, understanding where you are, and everybody's financial situation is different, everybody's home life is different, everybody's work life is different. There are so many different variables in what can, contribute to how fast you get everything done. But setting goals, I set goals for myself, but my goals were, I did not differentiate long-term and short-term goals. I just had things that I knew I've been dreaming of doing, and I wanted to do them, and I started on them right away. What I probably would have done and what I would do in the future, so let's just say if I was to get a larger property and say, okay, I can finally do things on a larger scale, which is what I've always dreamed. I know now, after experiencing this, that I would want to write down what I see for long term and then start shortening it as I get closer to now. And what I mean by that is, ultimate goal, I want to make a whole section of my backyard this large garden. I want to grow as much food as possible, and I want to sell it at the farmer's market and feed my family and all of these things, right? That is my overall goal. And I kind of, that's a shortened, but you get the gist. Short term, so let's just say I give myself, I'm just going to throw out there 10 years to get everything done. My big garden, my entertainment space in the backyard, from fire pit to deck to hot tub, and then playground for my kids, and then more animals, so shelters, a garage, those things. I'm gonna give myself 10 to 15 years. 5-year goal, getting the entire garden finished and designed the way I want to. That means graveling the walkways and permanent in-ground space and permanent raised garden bed space. That includes moving my chickens to the area that I want them to be. And taking down some more trees to allow my space to expand into my wooded area of my property. I might say that's a 5 to 7 year goal. Now, I, with all my excitement, wanted to have the 5 to 7 year goal in the 1 to 2 year goal. And it's possible, if things work out financially the way that I expect, or my work-life balance, all those things fall into place perfectly. However, more realistic 1 to 2 year goals would be me getting started on the front garden bed, which I've done. Me mapping out or designing the garden. And I say 1 to 2 years, and I'm actually within my 1 year. So this is still a lot faster than the 1 to 2 year goal, because I think I'm only like 8 or 9 months in. So 1 to 2 year, getting the garden mapped out and stuff like that. And I'm telling you now that I should have done that. I should have lived in the home for a year before the big garden expansion. Now, I don't regret doing it this way, because honestly, I don't have anything permanently set. I did put a lot of work into a whole lot of garden beds, which I probably could have waited on doing that. But even that's not permanent. I can always move those. They are not permanent fixtures. If anything, the garden beds are sitting on top of the ground, on top of cardboard, and then filled in with wood chips and compost and wood shavings from when they took down these trees back here, which is all good for the soil under the garden bed. So if I was to take that apart and move my garden bed somewhere else, even if I was to remove some of the soil out of that to add to the garden beds in a different location, that top soil that would be left is well nourished. The broken down compost and wood chips and all the things that I put at the bottom of that garden bed is going to be really good for that topsoil. So in a sense, I don't think that what I did was bad. I just think it's going to add more work in the long run, because I'm going to have to take it down and redo it. But had I lived in the home first, worked on the things that I needed to work on the inside, because you also got to take into account, like, I bought this house and it was newly renovated, but the renovations were done poorly, and some not to code. And so I've had to put money into the inside of the house along with the outside of the house. And with that being said, I was trying to do both things at once, along with working and rebuilding my business as well. So had I focused on the inside, had I focused on the work-life balance and the changes that was going on in my life, and maybe did a couple of garden beds that would be beneficial to my family, to feeding my family, I think I would have been able to gain a little bit more knowledge and not have to redo some of this work later on. I digress. I am not mad. This is another lesson learned for me, and I'm able to share that with you. So 1 to 2 year goals would be something that I would do, that I would have done after the first year, not within the first 6 to 8 months. So let's just be clear about that. So that's the first lesson that I learned. Setting goals, realistic goals, and pacing yourself is the main thing that I got from that situation. Now let's go to just the gardening goals or gardening lessons that I learned. Well, one thing that I did do that I wasn't sure about, but I wanted to try it anyway, was I actually planted my spring garden late. I knew it was late. I went and I got these starts because I couldn't start it from scratch. I didn't have a greenhouse. I forgot to add that to my goal. I'm going to say I'm going to have that in the 1 to 2 year, because I'm hoping by at least next year I'll have a greenhouse. Not having a greenhouse and wanting to get something growing, right? I put some cool weather crops in late. Like, I should have done that in maybe February. but my daughter just got home from school. But I did it like March. And although that's not really, really, really late, it is still pretty late when you're considering that the weather changes in the spring so fast here in Virginia. So me putting that in, I didn't allow myself time for the cool weather crops to mature. I signed up for the farmer's market thinking that I was going to have all these greens and broccoli and, bok choy and stuff like that, which they grew, but they didn't mature. And in fact, everything has gone to seed. Everything has gone to seed. That is the hardest lesson I learned because I spent money on this and I got nothing from it. Let me take that back. I didn't get what I feel is worth the investment from it. Because I was able to harvest some greens, mix it all up in a pot and have one pot this whole season. The rest of it has gone to seed. I've just pulled up at the entire, I want to say I had 12 plants of bok choy. All of them went to seed. I didn't cook any bok choy this year. None. Everything has gone to the chickens. Now, while that is not a complete waste, that is not the purpose for me planting that bok choy. I really wanted to eat the bok choy. I also maybe wanted to sell some bok choy, and I did not get a chance to do that. So, the lesson that I learned there is making sure that I plant, I plan properly, get my dates correct on when I should start things. Because there's some plants that are very forgiving, and then there's a season where like that, it obviously just didn't work. And it didn't just not work for one or two plants. It didn't work for like the whole bed that I thought I was going to harvest from in early spring, which is now, did not get to maturity. So that's a lesson. Second lesson I learned is starting your seeds. So for me, I enjoy starting my seeds because it's more cost efficient. Starting from seed, I can get a whole pack with 100 seeds in it for like $1, $2. If I get organic and all these things, it could go up to $4. But for $4 at the nursery or Lowe's or Tractor Supply or anywhere else that you get started plants from, you'll get one plant, maybe two. If it's in a little 4-pack, you can get 4. But even if you got 4, that's $1 a plant, where I could get 100 for $4. And the seeds don't expire like in that 1 year. I can use those for years to come. They have an expiration date for when you can sell them. You have to sell them for that year, but you can save them for years. So investment-wise, financially wise, starting from seed is a better option, especially if you're growing a lot. But making sure you start your seeds at the right time is also something that to consider. So, number one, I didn't have a greenhouse. I had to start all my seeds inside. Again, here's the impatient part of me, because I could have started some seeds, not 144 of the same type of seed or same vegetable seed. And that would have allowed space for me to start a handful of each thing that I wanted to grow, which would have been enough for me to plant my 4 garden beds in the front and left the back for me to plan and prepare and possibly go over and rethink and watch the sun as it goes up and down and those things. But I decided to just dive headfirst and plant hundreds of seeds, which I have space for, but I wasn't prepared for. So a lot of my tomato plants got really big before it was even time to go to the farmer's market. And I could have sold some at the farmer's market had they not been in the condition that they were. Now, they weren't in bad condition, but as I mentioned in previous videos, they were too big for anyone's liking. So with that being said, starting seeds on time and planting on time, I guess, go hand in hand when trying to learn from these mistakes. I think the other thing that I learned is doing things in order. So I shared in previous videos how I don't have the heavy machinery or the equipment to do some of the things that I want to do, such as moving the mulch to the back. So I started doing it by hand with a wheelbarrow, and then I started using a trailer attached to my lawnmower. It works, but it takes some time. And because I wanted to get some other things done, I would do that for a little bit, then go and do something else, not quite finish that thing, then go back to this. And then I also had some projects again with the house. I wanted to build a deck. I wanted to get my shed finished. I needed to get some electrical work, some plumbing work. Like all of these things that I needed to get done, I started and then ran out of whatever resource I ran out of for that. And then I would start something else. Being that I am doing this by myself, I'm not saying that like was the absolute wrong thing to do, but I am saying that learning from my mistakes, I know now I should focus on one thing at a time versus me spreading myself so thin because it's just me doing these things. I probably could have had all of those wood chips moved by now had I not started on the fire pit, had I not started on the back patio deck area, had I not started building this large garden. And also some of the things that I started and then tore apart, like the mobile chicken tractor. The money that was spent on those things, the effort, the time could have been put towards moving those wood chips. I didn't see it that way because moving the wood chips was just one thing, right? And to me, even if I had finished that one thing, I would have felt like I wasn't making enough progress. But looking at it in a different light, it would have been a lot of progress because that would have been finished, which would have made the garden part a whole lot easier. It would have made possibly getting my shed finished a whole lot more affordable because I would have done that, finished paying off whatever I need to pay off for that, and then started on the next project, and that wouldn't have been stalled. Now I am making payments on a building that I'm not using because I had to split my time. So these are just things that I'm learning. I'm being 100% transparent here. It's not easy. I don't have a lot of regrets because, again, I look at this as a lesson learned. My dream to have a larger property with even more is now something that I am more prepared for, so I won't mess up in the same ways with that ultimate dream, because I could lose so much more in that situation. So I wanted to encourage everyone. This video was not to show you my garden. It was not to show you some plants, but it was to just share something that I have been thinking about along this journey as it pertains to what I would do differently in the future. And I hope that it was very helpful. I hope that it touched some people. I hope that it even allowed you a moment to see the reality of this dream. It's not something that's not attainable, but it is something that you should prepare for. It is something that you should plan for. It is something that you should do more than just dream about, but actually set things in motion without getting super spiritual, in the spirit before it manifests in the natural. I said without getting super spiritual, but that's how I see it. I am a woman of faith, and so to me, I see this as God telling me, slow down, write down what you want to do, plan for it, put down some goals, make sure that you have steps in place to help push that vision into manifestation. But making sure that you understand the limits that you have financially, physically, emotionally. And so, again, I hope this helps someone. I thank you so much for supporting us. My other kids' bus just got here, so I'm going to go inside and do afternoon snacks and ask everybody how they're doing. And until next time, y'all, be blessed.